Welcome back to the Triton build series. I thought I would do the rundown of the cabin and canopy setup for this episode relative to the way that I've got things going. Again, like I've mentioned in the previous videos, it's kind of set up the way for sort of that easy to medium off-road touring sort of setup, and in here I've got all of the stuff that I feel like you'd rather have and not need it than need it and not have it. And given the sort of caliber of this build, I wanted to make sure that the stuff that I was putting in relative to our safety and recovery was going to be the best that was available, and if not the best, as close to the best as you can get. I'll run you through the way that I've got this one set up. Essentially, we'll start at the front of the cabin. Given that you're spending quite a bit of time in this area, keep it simple, and I wanted it not to be so cluttered, because once you start adding accessories and things that are giving you telemetry, it can get really messy and cluttery in there. So given the environment that it is, it's quite a nice interior in the car as it is. Didn't want to go away and kind of take away from the simplicity of the car and the way that it's been set up by putting a number of bits and pieces everywhere. So relative to the communications end, obviously other people, when you're out on the tracks and whatnot, it's really important to have some communication. If you get yourself in a bit of a sticky situation that you can't get yourself out of, you're going to try and reach out and try and get help from somebody that's in and around. For this situation, I've had in the past different systems such as Uniden and whatnot, but this time around I thought, look, I'm going to do it once and do it right. Not that there's any issues with the Uniden stuff at all, but I did want, if I'm going to spend that sort of money, I wanted the most functionality I could get out of the system. So I went with the GME XRS Connect, really flash sort of unit, which is new to market. Well, maybe not new to market, but hasn't been around for a great deal of time. It's a Triton tested system, and it's an all-in-one, so everything's in the handpiece. Like I mentioned, I didn't want to kind of have a number of different control boxes and bits and pieces floating around. I wanted it all to look nice and neat. The XRS Connect, really good unit. It's tidy, everything's all in one spot. The handpiece feels really high quality. Look, it is reflective of the price. It is what it is. I'm all about putting the money where it needs to be and not spending more money than you have to on something that's going to do exactly the same thing. In this case, obviously the GME does give me a little bit more connectivity. So the GMEs, they have Bluetooth app connectivity. They have the ability to ping off your location and GPS coordinates. If you are in a really ultra sticky situation, that gives you that extra peace of mind. Nice clean unit, it's easy to tuck away. I've got mine set up right behind the glove box. So mine's set up right behind the glove box. It takes its power from there, and it's kind of set up really nicely. You can't see it. The cable for the unit just kind of dangles down there, and it's well and truly out of the way. It's not really intruding into any cabin space at all. So that's that. I'm running GME short antenna. It is the 2.6 decibel range, which gives me a little bit more, I suppose, spread over those sort of tighter places, up in the hills and whatnot. I tend to do a little bit more in Victorian high country, so I am in a little bit more hilly terrain, so that decibel range works really well with what I need. I'm always getting an ultra sharp, crisp signal from anybody that's on the channels. Really crisp signal from even up to a handpiece when I'm out with more than one car. Even the handhelds, they'll emit a really good clear signal. So really happy with the GME bit. It's also nice, obviously, don't get me wrong, I'm not much of a brand whore or anything, but it's nice when you've got a good quality product and you can really feel the difference in build quality overall. I've got the HEMA HX1 GPS system. The HEMA units were really good in the way of what they offered relative to the functionality of the HX1 was kind of the one that I wanted to go for. Able to find that, it was at like a half price sale at Anaconda, one of the retailers here, and was able to pick it up. It has been out, it has been superseded now by the HX2, but given the functionality of what I needed to do and what's on this particular unit, more than enough. Before I had it, it was a nightmare. You kind of had to load it on Google Maps and all the rest of it, and it's all good and well when you're only going one way, but when you need to explore and have a look around, you can't go past the standalone GPS unit. So this one's been really good. I've been very happy with it. No complaints relative to that. I did buy a second-hand one before I bought this, which was an absolute nightmare. So going new, there was a lesson learned pretty much. Just some small bits and bobs. I do have just the King's fridge monitor. As you can tell, my fridge is off because you wouldn't want your fridge at 30 degrees. Fridge is off at the moment, but it is handy to have that kicking around, so you're not constantly having to jump out and check your fridge temperature. Because I do cart a bit of baby food and stuff like that, which is temperature sensitive, I want to make sure that that fridge is at the right temperature at all times. So a little bit of weird telemetry to have, but I do like having that. The interior of the GLS spec that we've got is pretty good in the way of what the standard features are. It obviously has parking sensors all the way around. It is a huge car. Low visibility with the canopy on the back as well. But outside of that, it's got lane departure warning. It's got lane departure warning. It's also got parking sensors. It's got front collision. It's got all of the features, the safety features that were really important to me, relative to a family car with our previous car, with our Skoda. So we didn't lose any safety features in terms of the standard of safety, which is ultra good. Factory head unit does have Apple CarPlay, which is perfect. There's been a bit, obviously with the capacitor shortage, there's been a bit of a situation relative to the quality of the head units going into the 2022 cars. So lucky then again, good things happen to good people, and got lucky and lucky again relative to having this car, which is already here with a good head unit with no connectivity issues. Apple CarPlay on this, Android Auto as well, if you're, like that. Moving into the canopy area, a couple of things that I needed to have relative to my setup in the rear of the car. One of the most important things was to have the efficiency of space in this area. Always wanted to do a canopy. I didn't want to do a tray and canopy setup because it just wasn't going to work with what I needed it to do. I cart around a 65 kilo Great Dane Bull Arab. He's massive. He stands at your shoulders. He's about 2.2 meters tall. So he's a big dog. More importantly, I have a small Chihuahua as well. In saying that, I wanted to make sure that the space was capable of carrying them as well as our stuff, on the roof racks, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail when I go through our camping setup and the way it's set up. I wanted to make sure that I was able to take them and our stuff and have them in as best comfort as I could. So relative to the way that I optioned the canopy, I optioned to have a sliding window on the driver's side. So just on this side, we've got the slide out on both ways, giving the dogs the opportunity to breathe and get some fresh air through the canopy. Fortunately, with that fridge monitor as well, I do get ambient temperature for the canopy as well, so I'll know whether or not it's getting too hot or whatever. And using a little bit of common sense, you're not going to take them, on a day like it is in this factory right now. It is absolutely boiling in here. But here I am, it's the cost of show business, right? One of the most important things was to have the capacity to have the dogs in there. I do have a photo of them both in there because in this, I suppose this instance, relative to scale, it doesn't look like they fit, but they both fit there swimmingly. They've got heaps of space in there, it's not an issue at all. So I went with two 1300mm long ute drawers. In here I've got most of my camping relative stuff. I also have my air compressor when I'm airing up and airing down. Keep all the basic sort of stuff like my torches and my straps relative to the roof. On this side, in here there's some barbecue stuff relative to the stove that we take camping. Again, I'll probably go through that stuff in a little bit more detail in the other video. The basic setup, two 1300mm drawers on both sides, obviously. This one comes out. This is where I keep more of my recovery gear, jump starter and stuff like that. Secondary battery, which is located here right next to the fridge. And the cool thing about this package relative to these drawers is that the top acts like a fridge slide. Fridge slide is ultra handy. There is not a great deal of space, unfortunately, relative to the way that this particular fridge opens. This is a 45 litre Austrail fridge. So you do have a limited opening there, but sufficient for what we're using it for. You can definitely reach in there and get everything out. Fortunately, I'm not blessed with height, so I will have to get a step for this, which is embarrassing, but it is what it is. Outside of that, obviously, we've got this proper fridge. I did have an evaporative cooler early on in the setup, which was okay, but after a couple of days, it kind of just wouldn't hold temperature enough, and so the necessity was there to move to a proper compressor style fridge, 20 to minus 20, I think. So fridge freezer functionality. A couple of things I want to do relative to the cable tidy there. I do want, I've already got the ARB track, which kind of stops the cable from pinching on anything. Just got to find a clever way to set that up. So by no means is the car done, but it is, at a level where, it's just small improvements that need to be made. So going to the secondary battery, I've got the secondary battery set up there with a King's DC to DC 25 amp charger with solar. So at some point I will be getting a nice solar panel, sit it up top and just keep that battery topped up. I just run the fridge really at the moment. Occasionally we'll charge stuff in the back, but nothing crazy. So it is just the fridge. It's 115 amp AGM battery that I have in the box, which normally is okay. I just find that with the last couple of days that we've been having 35, 40 degree days, the fridge is working, unnecessarily to keep it cold, and it's not like we're going anywhere. So when the weather is like this, I'll just keep it switched off and before we take off, I'll switch it on a couple of hours before, and that way it's good to go when it's time to set off. Solar improvement is yet to come for this system, so once I have solar there, it'll give me the opportunity to not stress so much about that auxiliary battery running flat. Super healthy the way that it is, but you know, it would just be nicer to have that solar. Outside of that, on the far side, we have a lift up window, which also gives me accessibility to the fridge inside canopy, so I can quickly grab something out of the fridge if I need to. So outside of that, there's a couple of things left to do. I will be wrapped aligning the tailgate and that sort of area. I will have to get the additional seals that kind of run around that door area, just because you do still get a little bit of ingress of dust. So before I had the canopy, I did do a number of trips before I had the canopy, and it was just dust central. There's so much dust in there. So I will be doing additional caulking around the sort of seals, just to make sure that it's ultra tight. I have no intention of taking this canopy off ever again. So I want to make sure that that seal is permanent and good to go. But that's pretty much everything I can think of relative to the canopy and interior setup of the car. Again, if you have any questions relative to this, you know, or want to get any ideas or whatever, send me through a message and I'll be sure to get back to it. But outside of that, thank you very much for joining me for another video. As per normal, like and subscribe. It really helps channels like ours grow. If you're enjoying the content, you know, that way you're not going to miss out on anything as well. So like and subscribe, hit that bell icon. Thanks again for watching the video. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks.